I sensed something was off with Michael long before he ever spoke a word. It was in the way he lingered in doorways, as if deciding whether to enter a room or turn back. It was in the half-smiles he gave me at breakfast, the ones that didn't quite reach his eyes. And it was in the quiet pauses during our conversations, those brief, suspended moments where he seemed to weigh a truth he wasn't ready to reveal. For months I told myself it was stress, exhaustion, the usual wear and tear of adulthood. But deep down, I knew better. Silence has a texture, and his had grown heavier with each passing week. We'd been married long enough to recognize shifts in each other. Michael was a man who preferred clarity over ambiguity, someone who usually spoke his mind with confidence. When he struggled for words, it meant something inside him was unraveling. I watched it happen slowly, like a thread pulled from a sweater, subtle at first, then impossible to ignore. Our home still looked the same, the warm lighting we both liked, the soft couch we'd picked out on a rainy afternoon, the framed photos from vacations we could now barely remember clearly. But the familiarity of our surroundings only amplified the growing distance between us. Every shared space became a quiet reminder that something unspoken was expanding in the room. One evening in early October, I found Michael sitting alone on the edge of our bed. The window was open, letting in a cool breeze that rustled the curtains. He wasn't scrolling his phone like he usually did. Instead, he stared at the floor, shoulders tense, jaw tight. When I stepped into the room, he didn't look up right away. And that silence, the thick, trembling kind, told me that whatever he was holding inside had reached its breaking point. "Emily," he finally said, voice rough around the edges. "Can we talk?" My stomach tightened, not with fear, but with recognition. I had been waiting for this moment without knowing exactly what it would bring. I sat beside him, the mattress dipping under our combined weight, and for the first time in months, he looked directly at me. "There's something I've been keeping to myself," he said. His fingers intertwined, then tightened. "And I don't know how to say it without hurting you." My breath caught, though I tried to hide it. His vulnerability wasn't new to me. What was new was the way he seemed afraid of his own confession. Afraid of its consequences. Afraid of the shift it might cause in the fragile balance of our marriage. "Just tell me," I whispered. "Whatever it is, I'd rather hear it than wonder." Michael exhaled like he'd been holding that breath for weeks. And in that moment, before any truth was spoken, I understood one thing with painful clarity. Whatever he was about to say had the power to reshape everything we thought we knew about each other. And I wasn't sure if I was prepared for the truth. But I knew I needed to hear it. Michael didn't speak right away. Instead, he rubbed his palms against his jeans, a nervous habit I'd seen only a handful of times in our marriage. The room felt colder somehow, as if the air itself was waiting. I could hear the faint hum of traffic outside, a steady reminder that the rest of the world continued unfazed while ours hovered on the edge of a shift we couldn't name. When he finally lifted his gaze, his eyes held a kind of fragile honesty that made my chest tighten. "Emily," he said softly, "I haven't been myself lately. And it's not because of work or stress. It's something internal. Something I haven't known how to share." I nodded, encouraging him, though my heartbeat drummed louder than any reassurance I could offer. It was strange, sitting beside a man I'd loved for nearly a decade, and yet feeling as if he were about to introduce me to a version of himself I'd never met. "I didn't hide this to lie to you," he continued, voice low. "I hid it because I was afraid I wouldn't recognize myself once I said it out loud. And I thought you wouldn't either." His words struck deeper than I expected. Marriage shapes people, sometimes into clearer versions of themselves, sometimes into shadows of who they were. I wondered which direction Michael felt he had been drifting. "Whatever it is," I said quietly, "you're still my husband. You're still the man I chose." Michael gave a faint, almost broken smile. "That's exactly why this is so hard." He stood up abruptly, pacing a short line across the room. His hands kept flexing open and closed, as if he were trying to release tension he couldn't shake. I watched him, feeling the weight of each step he took. This wasn't a confession born out of impulse, it was something that had been simmering long enough to change the rhythm of his entire body. "Emily," he said, stopping near the window. "Have you ever wanted something you didn't understand? Something that scared you because it didn't fit the person you thought you were supposed to be? The question startled me, not because I had an answer, but because I didn't. Before I could respond, he continued. I've been wrestling with something. A desire. A thought that keeps coming back no matter how much I try to ignore it. He paused, swallowing hard. And I think the guilt of hiding it from you has built a wall between us. His voice cracked on the last word. I felt something soften inside me, not acceptance, but compassion. Tell me, I whispered. Tell me the thing that built the wall. Michael's eyes shimmered with a mix of fear and relief. I will, he said, stepping closer. But once I do, things may not be the same between us. His honesty hung in the air like a fragile thread, stretching between us. And as I met his gaze, I realized something. Whatever truth he was holding didn't just scare him. It scared me, too. But I also knew we had reached the point where silence would do more harm than the confession itself. Then tell me anyway, I said. And with that, Michael finally opened the door to a truth he'd been holding for years. Michael exhaled slowly, as if preparing himself for an impact that hadn't yet arrived. He sat back down beside me, but not too close, as though he needed space to let the truth form properly. The lamp cast a soft glow across his face, highlighting the tension etched in his jawline. I waited, silent and still, knowing that anything I said too soon might make him retreat again. When he finally spoke, his voice trembled with equal parts fear and relief. Emily, I've been having thoughts about being with someone else. He paused, searching my expression, bracing himself for disappointment or anger. Not behind your back. Not in secret. Not as betrayal. Just the idea of it. The fantasy of something outside our marriage. The words landed like small shocks across my skin, not sharp, but undeniably jarring. I didn't interrupt, though my mind spun in 1,000 directions. I needed to hear him fully before I let myself feel anything fully. He continued, almost whispering, it started as passing thoughts. But I kept burying them, thinking they were wrong. Then the more I tried to push them down, the more persistent they became. And lately, it's like they've taken up space inside me I can't ignore. I inhaled slowly, letting the admission settle. So you're telling me this because you want to act on it? His eyes widened. No. God, no. I don't want to hurt you. I don't want to break us. I'm telling you because I can't keep pretending these thoughts don't exist. And I can't stand the distance they've created. I want to understand them. I want you to understand them. The raw honesty in his voice softened something sharp inside my chest. Michael, I said carefully, wanting something and betraying someone are not the same. But this, I paused, feeling the weight of the moment. This is big. I know, he whispered. I hate that it's part of me. But it is. And the idea of hiding it from you, hiding any part of myself from you, felt worse than the fantasy itself. He reached for my hand but stopped midway, giving me space to decide. I placed my hand in his anyway, feeling the warmth trembling through his fingers. He looked at me with something desperate in his eyes, an unspoken plea not for permission, but for understanding. I asked quietly, is it about wanting someone else, or wanting something different with us? He closed his eyes for a moment. Maybe both. Maybe neither. I don't know. I just know I don't want to explore anything without you. I want us to be honest, even when it's uncomfortable. His words settled into me, stirring fear and curiosity in equal measure. I didn't know what this meant yet, or where it would lead us, but I felt the shift happening, deep and undeniable. And as I looked at him, still clutching my hand, I realized the question tugging at both our hearts. Could our marriage survive this truth? Or would this truth reshape our marriage entirely? The next morning arrived with a quiet heaviness that neither Olivia nor Liam dared to acknowledge. Sunlight drifted through the kitchen window in soft, diagonal strokes, illuminating the dust motes floating in the air like slow-moving reminders of everything they had left unsaid. Olivia stood by the counter, her fingers wrapped around a cup of lukewarm tea, pretending to read the messages on her phone. Her mind, however, lingered on the same question that had been tightening her chest since last night. Was she ready to confront the truth she had avoided for far too long? Liam entered the kitchen with careful steps, as though afraid his presence alone might shatter the fragile calm. "Morning," he offered, voice steady but strained. His eyes carried a silent plea, a hope for a conversation, a confession, a chance. But Olivia avoided his gaze, pretending to be focused on pouring cereal into Noah's bowl. Noah, blissfully unaware of the emotional tension filling the room, chatted about school, his voice the only genuine sound cutting through the stiffness. Olivia forced a smile for him, yet even he sensed something different. At one point, he paused and glanced between his parents, frowning slightly. "Are you guys okay?" he asked, simple and innocent. Olivia's heart twisted. "Of course, sweetheart," she replied quickly. But the lie tasted bitter, and when her eyes flicked up, she found Liam watching her, hurt flickering across his face. As soon as Noah left for school, the fragile silence stretched again. Liam leaned against the counter, arms crossed, trying to look calm but failing miserably. "Olivia, we can't keep doing this," he said quietly. "We need to talk." She stiffened. "About what?" "We've talked enough." "No," he whispered, stepping closer. "You've avoided enough." His words struck deeper than she wanted to admit. She turned away, staring at the small cracks in the tiled floor as if they held a less painful reality. "I don't know what you expect from me," she murmured. I'm trying to hold everything together. And I'm trying to understand you," he said, voice trembling with honesty. "But you keep shutting me out. If there's something you're not telling me, I need to know." Olivia finally met his eyes, and for a moment, her entire facade wavered. The guilt she had been carrying, quiet, invisible, corrosive, pressed against her ribs, demanding release. But speaking the truth meant risking everything she still had left. And she wasn't sure she was ready for that. "Liam," she whispered, some things are harder to say than you think." He stepped closer, gently placing his hand on the counter beside hers, inches away but not touching. "Then let me help you say them." Her breath caught. The sincerity in his voice peeled away the last of her defenses, leaving her exposed and trembling with the weight of everything she had buried. Before she could answer, her phone vibrated sharply against the counter, an unexpected message that flashed a name she never wanted Liam to see again. And he saw it. The room fell utterly silent. For a heartbeat, neither of them spoke. The name glowing on Olivia's screen, Aidan, seemed to radiate its own quiet violence. Liam's eyes lingered on it just long enough for Olivia to see the shift in his expression. Confusion first, then realization, then something far more devastating. The air between them thickened, not with anger, but with the kind of hurt that reshapes everything it touches. Olivia snatched the phone instinctively, as if protecting the device could undo what he had already seen. It's nothing," she whispered, but even she knew how unconvincing the words sounded. Liam exhaled slowly, the kind of broken, disbelieving sound that made Olivia's chest tighten. "Olivia," he said, voice trembling, "don't insult me with that." Her pulse thundered in her ears. Every excuse she had rehearsed, every justification she had clung to in private, suddenly felt weak and flimsy under the weight of his gaze. She opened her mouth to speak but found herself choking on the truth she'd buried. "Is he the reason you've been distant?" Liam asked, quieter now, but sharper. "Is he the reason you can barely look at me anymore?" Olivia's throat constricted. She wanted to deny it, to reach for some safer version of the truth, but the lie refused to form. "It wasn't supposed to become anything," she murmured, her voice fragile. I was angry. I felt alone." And he listened. Liam closed his eyes, and for a moment, she thought he might yell. But when he looked at her again, there was no rage, only a deep, exhausted sorrow that hurt more than anger ever could. "How long?" he asked. "A few months," she confessed softly, her hands trembling. "But it's over. I ended it." His shoulders slumped, as though the confession drained what little strength he had left. "You should have told me," he whispered. "Instead of letting me believe I was just failing you." The words struck her like a blow. She stepped forward, instinctively reaching for him, but he took a small step back, a quiet rejection that stung far more than shouting would have. "Liam, I never meant to." He shook his head. "Intent doesn't erase what happened." Silence settled between them again, But this time it was heavy with irreversible truths. Olivia felt the weight of her choices pressing down, unraveling the fragile attempts at normalcy she had tried to build. She searched his face, desperate for some sign of hope, but found only a man trying not to break. Finally, Liam spoke, voice steady but stripped of warmth. "I need space. I need time to think. And I need you to be honest with me from now on about everything." Olivia swallowed hard. "I will," she whispered. I want to fix this." His eyes softened for a brief second, revealing a glimmer of the man who once believed in their forever. "I don't know if we can fix it," he admitted, "but I'm willing to try, if you are." The fragile promise hung in the air, uncertain, trembling, but alive. And just as Olivia took a shaky breath, her phone buzzed again. This time, the message wasn't from Aidan. The new message glowed on Olivia's screen, drawing her attention like a moth to a flame. Her fingers hovered over it, heart thudding as if warning her against the intrusion. She hesitated, then finally swiped to read it. The words were short, almost casual, but they carried a weight that made her stomach drop. "Can we talk? I need to explain everything." It was from Michael. Her chest tightened. After the chaos of yesterday, the confessions, the tears, the silent hours of staring at each other without words, he was reaching out again. But now, the stakes were higher. Liam had left the room to clear his mind, giving her the space to respond, yet leaving her feeling both exposed and strangely empowered. She tapped a reply, fingers trembling. "Okay. I'll meet you tonight." The hours stretched thin as she went about her day, each task feeling impossibly heavy. Every glance at the clock reminded her of the impending conversation that could change everything. She tried to prepare herself, rehearsing questions, formulating boundaries, and reminding herself that she needed clarity not just for Michael, but for herself, for Liam, for the life she wanted to reclaim. By the time evening arrived, the sky was painted with the soft reds and purples of sunset. Michael was waiting in the small cafe they had agreed upon, his posture tense, hands folded tightly on the table. When Olivia approached, he stood, a hesitant smile breaking through his anxiety. "Emily," he said softly. "Michael," she replied, sliding into the chair opposite him. The scent of coffee and faint cologne mingled around them, familiar yet charged with unspoken tension. He took a deep breath. "I need to be completely honest with you," he began. "The fantasy I told you about, it's not just an abstract idea anymore. I realized something. I can't explore it without your involvement, or at least, your understanding. I've been thinking a lot about what that means, and I don't want to hurt anyone, not you, not Liam, not us." Emily's eyes searched his, trying to read the sincerity etched into every line of his face. "So what do you want from me?" she asked cautiously. "I want clarity. I want boundaries. And I want to be honest about everything I feel," he said. "But most importantly, I want to know if we can navigate this, together, without hiding or betraying each other." Her mind whirled, a storm of emotions colliding: fear, curiosity, disappointment, and a strange flicker of excitement. It wasn't just about the fantasy anymore. It was about trust, vulnerability, and the choices they both had to make to preserve what they valued most. "I don't know if I can answer fully right now," she admitted. "But I'm willing to listen. And I want us to be honest, no matter how difficult it is." Michael nodded, relief washing over his features. "That's all I'm asking. I don't expect perfection. I just don't want us to hide anymore." As they sat together in that quiet cafe, the soft hum of conversations around them fading into the background, Emily realized that honesty, even the uncomfortable, unsettling kind, was the first step toward understanding. And perhaps, just perhaps, it was also the first step toward rebuilding the fragile trust that had been stretched to its limits. The sky outside darkened, stars beginning to pierce the twilight, and for the first time in days, Emily felt a flicker of hope. Whatever came next, she knew one thing: the silence was over, and the truth, however complicated, would guide their way forward.